Good afternoon. The Senate Committee on Natural Resources will now come to order. Members and presenters, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. At this time, will our secretary please proceed to call the roll?
Senator Brooks,
Here.
Senator Goycochea,
Here.
Senator Hansen,
Here.
Senator Scheibel, Chair Donate.
And I am here. Thank you, and we've reached quorum. Welcome, everyone, to the Senate Committee on Natural Resources. Now, for anyone who has not participated in these virtual legislative meetings, I want to go ahead and quickly explain how they're being conducted during the 2021 session. As you know, the legislative building is currently closed to the public, so all meetings will be held virtually. This means that committee staff, members, and everyone else will have to participate either through the Zoom video conference or by telephone. There are various ways that the members of the public can engage with us. As in previous sessions, all committee-related information can be found on Nellis, which is accessible to by the legislature's website. There are 4 ways that you can engage with our committee. This includes registering to participate in a committee meeting through the Nellis system, which places you in line to testify, submitting written testimony to the committee's email address, sharing your opinion via the legislature's opinion application on Nellis, and viewing committee meetings on Nellis or on the legislature's YouTube channel. To testify on a bill or provide public comment during the 2021 legislative session, members of the public must first register for the meeting that you'd like to participate in. Committee meetings are listed in several places on Nellis. All you have to do is simply click on the participate button near the meeting date and time, then fill out the required information such as your name, the agenda item that you're interested in participating in, and your position on the bill. Once your registration is submitted, you will see a confirmation screen, and you will also receive the phone number and meeting ID. Just as a note that while meeting registration is required to participate, it does not guarantee you a spot to speak. When you are on the phone line, please pay attention to which bill is being considered and which bills are on the agenda. We only have one today, and so just follow when BPS calls on you and which keys to press to unmute yourself. BPS staff will call on you to speak by the last 3 digits of your phone number. Detailed instructions for participating in our committee meetings are also listed on the help page, which is linked in the banner at the top of every page on Nellis. And if you ever need any assistance with any of these processes, or if you'd like to receive electronic notification of the committee's agendas and minutes, please feel free to contact our committee manager at the committee email listed on the agenda. Today, again, we will only be hearing one bill, Senate Bill 149. So with that, let's go ahead and proceed with the hearing. So I will now go ahead and open the hearing on SB 149. This measure revises provisions relating to groundwater boards. I believe Senator Goycochea was going to represent the Legislative Committee on Public Lands to introduce the bill, and then the presenter, please proceed once you are done. So Senator Goycochea, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Senator Pete Goycochea, Senate District 19, and as a member of the Interim Committee on Public Lands, I'm pinch hitting for Chairman Parks. He wasn't able to be here today. Senate Bill 149 was proposed to the Legislative Committee as a BDR on September 22nd. We received a presentation that day from the Central Nevada Rural Regional Water Authority regarding its activities, and they also requested the bill that we are going to be hearing today. The bill is submitted and recommended by the Public Lands, authorizes the Board of County Commissioners to establish a groundwater board for an area designated as a groundwater basin by the state engineer. The recommendation allows the county commissioners to appoint the board, and also in the end, they are the only ones that can really dissolve the board. As I understand it, implementing the groundwater boards will provide some local knowledge and expertise to the state engineer in the decision-making process. In many of these, they have an institutional knowledge of the communities and those groundwater basins they represent. I would like to point out that this BDR was unanimously approved by the Legislative Committee on Public Lands. I believe that Mr. Fontaine from the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority has an amendment to the bill. In fact, I've seen it here, and so we'll turn to him and let him introduce his amendment, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions?
I think we're good for now. Mr. Jeff Fontaine, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Jeff Fontaine, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority. And on behalf of the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority, I'd like to thank the committee for hearing the bill this afternoon, SB 149, allowing me to present, and also to thank the Public Lands Committee for recommending the recommendation to draft this bill. And just by way of quick background, the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority is a 9-member county unit of local government whose mission is to protect water resources in member counties so they will have not only an economic future, but also their valued quality of life and environment is maintained. So under existing law, the state engineer may establish a groundwater board upon the recommendation of the Board of County Commissioners. And if the state engineer establishes a county groundwater board, the state engineer is required to confer with the board and receive its written advice and recommendations before approving any permits to drill a well or applications to appropriate groundwater or change existing rights, and also before adopting regulations or entering waters in a groundwater basin or portion of a groundwater basin that the state engineer has designated to be in need of administration. Existing law also states that it is the intention of the legislature that the state engineer and the board be in agreement whenever possible, but if there is a disagreement between the state engineer and the board, the views of the state engineer prevail. As Senator Goycochea indicated, Senate Bill 149 amends NRS 534035 to authorize a board of county commissioners to independently create a groundwater board and also select its members. SB 149 is really intended to assure that counties have input on how those designated basins within their communities are managed. And just a little bit of background, groundwater boards were first authorized in 1961 with the enactment of Assembly Bill 437, which mandated that a groundwater board be established for the Las Vegas Valley Groundwater Basin. And this worked very well for many years, which facilitated constructive dialogue between local stakeholders and the state engineer, and really resulted in positive outcomes for the Las Vegas Valley Groundwater Basin. The bill, or the law was amended, in 1973 to give the state engineer discretion to establish and dissolve groundwater boards. And to the best of our knowledge, no new groundwater boards have been established since that time. And we are aware of at least one county that had recommended that the state engineer establish a groundwater board. We believe that preserving and managing Nevada's limited water resources requires a thorough understanding of the changing condition and uses of our state's groundwater basins, which is best accomplished by coordination and collaboration between the state engineer and local groundwater boards that have local knowledge and perspective. And we also think that that coordination and collaboration needs to be strengthened. The state is once again experiencing drought conditions, and the state engineers proposed designating additional groundwater basins for administration. The Division of Water Resources has limited capacity, and its 2021-2023 biennial budget maintains staff vacancies and increases transfers from the basin account, which are the assessments for the water right holders in those designated groundwater basins that they manage. So we think it's important to strengthen that relationship and allow counties to have those groundwater boards. And Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to walk through the amendments that we proposed. So Section 1 authorizes counties to designate a regional authority as a groundwater board. We have deleted that section in its entirety. Section 2, subsection 3 adds a vice chairman to the groundwater board. And Section 2, subsection 6 reduces the scope of the proposed actions for which the groundwater board would provide recommendation. This eliminates the possibility the possibility of delaying routine and perhaps emergency actions such as approving an attempt to drill part to replace a failing well. This amendment also limits the time for which the groundwater board would have to provide recommendations in 30 days, which generally aligns with the state engineer's public notification requirements in statute. And lastly, I want to make clear that the original provision in NRS 534035 that states it's the intention of the legislature that the state engineer and the board be in agreement whenever possible, but if there's any disagreement between the state engineer and the board, the views of the state engineer prevail. That remains in the bill. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, in summary, Senate Bill 149 gives boards of county commissioners and their constituents they represent a voice in the management of water resources they rely on for their economic future, quality of life, and natural environment. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 149. I stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine, for that presentation. Do we have any questions from my committee members at this time? Senator Goicoechea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll take my seat at the board. I appreciate it. Just a couple questions, Mr. Fontaine. Now, Section 8, Sub 8 of the bill talks about, the state engineer or any other state agency shall make technical information or whatever data available to the extent they can. If there's a cost incurred with that or in the functioning of the groundwater board, I assume that would go to the county that created the groundwater board.
Well, that's not inherent or necessarily explained in the bill. That's existing language, of course, and I would assume that would be the case as well.
And then all costs of functioning of the board functioning on the county level would be borne by the county as well.
Yes.
Well, there's no fiscal note. All right. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions at this time from the committee members? Vice Chair Scheibel.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that the state engineer already has the authority to create these boards, right?
Senator Scheibel, Vice Chair Scheibel, for the record, Jeff Fontaine. The state engineer has the authority to create the boards. What we're asking for is the authority be given to boards of county commissioners to create the boards without the approval of the state engineer.
Yes, and how many of these boards currently exist?
To our knowledge, none have ever existed except for the initial board that was created back in 1961 by legislation.
So are there county commissions already intending or that would create these boards that we already know of?
Vice Chair Scheibel, again, for the record, Jeff Fontaine. This is a recommendation from the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority. Central Nevada Regional Water Authority represents 9 member counties, and several counties have expressed interest in creating a board. I can't tell you today who those are or whether or not they would do that, but soon or whether they would do that in the near future. But the board recommended this request go to the Public Lands Committee so that they at least have the ability or authority to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Goicoechea and then Senator Hansen after.
It was a comment and a response more than anything back to Senator Scheibel, but I am aware that at least one county did petition the state engineer in the 90s and did not, in fact, get a groundwater board put in place. And I think as we look back, hindsight's always 20/20, but we've all heard of Diamond Valley. That Board of County Commissioners did want to impose a groundwater board there 25 years ago.
Thank you, Senator Goicoechea. Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Chair. I was on public land, so I remember a little bit about this. One of the main problems and the reason the bill came up is, yeah, we had an opportunity to have these boards, but it hasn't been exercised by the state engineer in decades. And there was a level of frustration among the counties because obviously water is a very big issue. And I think that's one of the reasons they wanted to have this delegation of authority but kicked back to them. It doesn't mean they're going to do it, but it does give them the authority to do it because currently they essentially have to go through the state engineer, and the state engineer, frankly, has just let the whole program atrophy. So just want to throw that comment out there because I do remember it vaguely on public lands. Public lands was done kind of like we're doing right now. So sometimes it wasn't quite as clear as I like to remember, but as I recall, that was one of the main issues.
Any other questions? Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see anywhere in here, and I don't know if maybe it's an existing statute and that it references back, but is there any sort of qualifications for the board members if a county were to create a board?
Mr. Fontaine, would you like to answer that?
For the record, Jeff Fontaine. Senator Brooks, the only reference in our bill in the proposed amendment is that the Board of County Commissioners would appoint the members. So there are no specific qualifications per se, other than it would be an appointment by the Board of County Commissioners.
So it's a board of county commissioners in a county, any county in the state, but then appoint a board that then would the state water engineer would have to consult with before making decisions in a basin in that county. And that board that the state water engineer has to consult with doesn't have any requirements to have any level of expertise whatsoever in water or even in the county. That seems like we just politicize the whole process, taking science out of it and putting politics into it.
Is that a question, or can I respond?
It was a equipment. It was a question wrapped in a statement. Please do respond. Yeah.
Well, under the existing statute, there are no specific requirements either for appointment to the board, other than under existing law, the governor would make those appointments based on recommendations from a county and/or cities. So, we've got to believe that the counties, if they were to create this board, would appoint people who had an interest and a knowledge and an understanding of water law. Short of specifying specific recommendations or qualifications in the statute, that's what we did. But if there's an interest in putting in qualifications, we could certainly do that.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine. Senator Goycochea.
I'm just going to kind of respond again with another one of you. What'd you call it, equipment? But, and again, going back to the particular county that I know did petition the state engineer, I think at that point, they even anticipated sitting as the groundwater board themselves, the full board of county commissioners. Again, it's just the ability to get some of that interaction between the state engineer and deal with those issues that clearly, and agree with you. If you aren't careful in how you select this board, it can become very political, and that's why I think most of them were really looking at they might even seat themselves.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. I have a quick question, and I'll go to, it looks like Senator Hansen has one as well. Mr. Fontaine, I'm interested, I understand how the bill is coming forward, but I'm interested in what problem it seeks to address, but I'm interested in what triggered this response. What problem did you encounter with the governor appointing members of a groundwater board that this bill needs to change now? Like, can you explain that for a little bit more?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Jeff Fontaine. The process as it exists today is really, I think, inefficient and it's an uncertain process, and it doesn't really encourage a county wanting to recommend a groundwater board if the only experience to date has been that the only request that's been made was not granted, and so I think that really all we're doing here is asking for the counties to have the ability to create their own board. And the process as it stands today is pretty inefficient. The board would have to pass a resolution, have to go to the state engineer. And then at that point, you don't know if you're going to have a board. And then if you do, then you have to go through a process of selection, nomination of appointees to the board. And then even after that's all finished, the governor can dissolve that at any time. And so it's just not really a process that seems to work. And more importantly, it's not a process that can be done very quickly.
Mr. Fontaine, could you describe a situation? You mentioned that there have been some inefficiencies that have taken place. Could you give an example of something that has created that this bill would help solve that?
Again, for the record, Jeff Fontaine, to you, Mr. Chair. The inefficiencies is the process itself to actually get a board established. And at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that the state engineer will in fact agree to appointing a board, to creating a board.
Thank you, sir. Senator Hansen, do you still have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple things. I think, I represent some counties that are exceptionally small. Esmeralda County only has 1,000 people in it. Lander County, a couple thousand people. And the reason I bring that up is, as Senator Goycochea brought to our attention, it's highly likely that in some of these small counties, especially the county commissions will act as their own groundwater board. But I think the real problem here, Mr. Chair, that you were trying to get at, for the most part, there haven't been any groundwater boards. I mean, it's in law, it's all there, but they don't exist. They haven't existed for decades. And so the process in law, as Mr. Fontaine was pointing out, it hasn't been utilized. Like I said, it's atrophied. It's there, but it hasn't happened. And so for the counties, my little small counties and stuff, they'd like to have some say. And as I read the bill, I don't think there's anything in there. The state engineer basically just can consult with them. They don't have any veto power over the state engineer. So I think that, as we're looking at this, what we're really trying to do is, frankly, just allow some level of involvement on the grassroots level and get some say in the whole process and allow the counties to have some level of input, at least, on the state engineer's decisions. So, and that's as I recall when I was on public lands listening to these. Actually, I'm going to throw, Senator Brooks, if you're listening, you remember you're on public lands with us. You remember, because we all voted for it. It was a unanimous vote. I'm just kind of trying to remember some of the dialogue that made us all agree to pass it. Anybody got any? Do you remember, Chris? Excuse me, Senator Brooks.
Chair, may I address that question from Senator Hansen? It's interesting. I was having this conversation earlier today, and there was a compelling enough argument made that I thought it should see the light of day and see what some bill language looked like. And that, unfortunately, is about as much as I can recall from that public lands meeting.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. I believe, so one quick note, we do have Adam Sullivan, Mr. Sullivan, on the phone line, and I can ask BPS to pull him if we have questions for the state engineer, but do we have any questions right now remaining for Mr. Jeff Fontaine? Okay, seeing none. BPS, can you go ahead and see if we can try to get the state engineer who's on the line to unmute himself?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, what was this gentleman's name again?
Mr. Sullivan.
Sullivan. Thank you so much, Chair. Mr. Sullivan, if you are on the line, please press *9 now to raise your hand. And Mr. Sullivan, if you could please press *6 now to unmute. Hello, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Thank you for having me. This is Adam Sullivan, acting Nevada State Engineer.
Hello, Mr. Sullivan. I wanted to pull you in case if any of my committee members have any questions for you specifically. Seeing that this will impact some of the responsibilities that are authorized through your office, do you have any remarks that you'd like to make the members aware of at this time?
Yes, thank you, Chair Doniate. I do agree with the general stated intent of this bill for additional coordination and collaboration between the counties and the state engineer's office. However, this is the first time I've heard an explanation of or any discussion about this bill by the proponents. In response to the discussion that I've been listening to, I wanted to mention that our office has not been approached with a recommendation to implement the statute as it is, as it currently written, to meet this overall intent. So I'm listening now for the first time to find out what the reasoning behind this proposed change is. I concur with the previous discussion that the groundwater boards have only been implemented once, and that was in Las Vegas in the Las Vegas Basin in the 1960s and early 70s, and that was with a very specific circumstance in mind, and it was a cooperative effort between the state engineer and the county at that time. And I can't speak to the specifics of the proposal in Eureka County in the 90s when a groundwater board was proposed. But I also concur that that's the only time that a county has approached the state engineer's office with a proposal to create a groundwater board. I also, based on my review of the bill language, it does appear to me that this would create new requirements on the Division of Water Resources and for additional noticing and for the preparation of written reports. And there is a disagreement between the state engineer and the county board. And this may have significant impacts on the state engineer's office with regard to additional staff time and resources that would be needed to accomplish these requirements. And those are my initial thoughts. If there are any questions from the board or for me, I'd be happy to try to provide an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Do any committee members have any questions for him at this time? Let me switch to Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adam, how are you this afternoon? And that's, I guess, when we opened the hearing, that's why I was questioning, that the counties would in fact be responsible for all the costs encumbered by the groundwater board, and was concerned as well as to how much you, as a state engineer or state agency, would have to participate. And I tried to establish on the record that in fact that would be the responsibility of the county to cover those costs. So I was hoping we had that piece of the fiscal side of it covered and make sure we didn't incur a fiscal note. And again, the statute was complete, the statute as it exists, and the Board of County Commissioners in Eureka did in fact petition the state engineer and the governor in the 90s when we were experiencing problems in Diamond Valley, and it was denied. And I'm not sure if it was by the state engineer or the governor. At that time, it seemed a little gray whether maybe the governor was the one that said, it just failed to progress. So with that, but I am supportive of this particular process. I think if it's, the notification has to occur no matter, your office has to notify the public. Just to have to notify the Board of County Commissioners, you're already doing that to a certain extent. And I do think in some cases the cooperation and the interaction might be beneficial. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. Any other questions or anything that we'd like to bring forward for Mr. Sullivan at this time? I don't see anything, so thank you, Mr. Sullivan, Senator Brooks looks like he has something. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. My question's for anyone who can answer it, actually, but it's probably not Mr. Sullivan, because it's about the bill language. And so Senator Goycochea just brought up the fact that it's not the intention of the state agency, the state engineer, to have to pay for any of the requests. But I don't see where it necessarily states that it just says that the board may request from the state, and the state needs to provide requests for information. Is there anything in the, it looks as if section 1 is deleted in the proposed amendment. Is that the piece of it that we feel will remove that requirement of the state to have more resources? Is it the amended, deleting section 1 in the amendment?
Mr. Fontaine?
Senator Brooks is addressing me.
Jeff Fontaine, Senator Brooks. So section 1 really doesn't relate to this anymore because we're deleting that. And that had to do with establishing a regional, delegating groundwater board responsibilities to a regional water authority, which we're the additional information that could be requested by a groundwater board. I mean, if it were an extraordinary request for information, that would be the groundwater board's responsibility. But I mean, even as an individual, you can request information from the state engineer on a water right application, for example, or additional information related to the order. So I don't know that this substantially changes that. That's not the intent to overwhelm the state engineer with request by groundwater board, but it is something in there that just makes sure that if groundwater board requests information, that's part of the roles and responsibilities of the respective partners here, the groundwater boards and the state engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine. I appreciate that. That answers my question, I think.
Senator Goycochea?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my colleague, Senator Brooks. It's actually section 1 sub 8, and it says the state engineer and all of the agencies shall, within the resources available to them, furnish such assistance as requested. So again, it's only within whatever resources are available, but I think it clearly on the record, this is going to be, if they're going to get together and resolve some of these issues, it's going to have to be a two-way street. The county's going to have to help, very similar to what happened in southern Nevada. The only difference with this, the counties are going to be able to impose it rather than the legislature, which is what they did in 61. But the only real concern I have are your concerns, Senator, and how we keep it from getting political. Thank you.
Mr. Fontaine, I have just one clarification question as I'm rereading this bill, and I just want to get you to answer it all you can. What happens, or how does this bill mitigate like the legal conflict? For instance, if the groundwater board recommends one thing on how to manage the basin conflicts, and then the state engineer completely disagrees, like what is that process, and how do you manage that conflict?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jeff Fontaine. So that is part of the working relationship between the groundwater board and the state engineer. Again, groundwater boards only provide recommendations. And in fact, under existing law, the state engineer can't even take an action until he receives the written recommendation of a groundwater board. What we're proposing is something a little bit different. And what we're saying is the groundwater board has 30 days, like most anybody else, including any member of the public, to prepare a recommendation. And if they don't do that within the 30 days, then they've missed their timeline. But if there's a disagreement, again, the statutory provision that currently exists today will remain in statute if this bill were enacted with the amendment, that the views of the state engineer prevail. The state engineer has the authority to either take or leave the recommendations of the groundwater board. This is an advisory body. So the state engineer has the ultimate authority.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine. Any last minute questions before we proceed? Senator Goycochea?
One more comment, and I thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. And I assume the state engineer is still on the line, but we know, as it exists today, there's a tremendous amount of litigation that's occurring between counties and the state engineer. The resolution of that in itself can save millions of dollars in the state. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it what it is. Right now, when one county doesn't agree with where the state engineer is, they end up litigating in court. I think we'd be far better served having them sit at the table and negotiate and consult with each other before they move forward and end up in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. Okay. Any other last minute comments before we move to the testimony? Seeing none, thank you again to Mr. Fontaine and to Mr. Sullivan for presenting, and Senator Goycochea. Let's go ahead and proceed. As a reminder, we will be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes each. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support testimony for SB 149?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 149, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 323. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Steve Walker, Stevewalker. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I am representing Eureka County. We support SB 149, including the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority's amendment. We are a member of that group and have been very involved in the efforts to bring this bill forward. We believe that SB 149 is a good step toward meaningful involvement of local communities and those mostly directly affected by water-related decisions. We believe SB 149 will result in less protests and local contention on water right applications due to local stakeholders being more actively involved as an advisory role on matters within designated basins and counties. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 068. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Wade Polson. I am the General Manager of Lincoln County Water District. My name is spelled Wadepoulsen. I would like to thank the Chair and this committee for allowing us to provide comments in support of SB 149. Lincoln County Water District agrees with and supports the idea and creation of local groundwater boards to help the state engineer in understanding local concerns for groundwater use. We support the idea that the creation of these boards and the dissolution of these boards are given to the local county commissions. This bill will help the small rural counties in having a voice and working relationship with the state engineer's office as decisions and orders and regulations of groundwater are discussed and acted upon in the groundwater basins in their counties. This bill can help in leading the way of resolving mistrust and lack of communication that can potentially exist between the state engineer in small rural areas and residents in vast, unpopulated groundwater basins. Lincoln County Water District would like to suggest an addition of language for your consideration. In Section 2, Number 4, which states, "The Groundwater Board shall maintain its headquarters at the county seat of the county," we would like to suggest adding the language, "or at the headquarters of the county water district or authority inside the county." Lincoln County has given Lincoln County Water District the authority to act in its name concerning water issues in Lincoln County. As the Lincoln County Water District headquarters are in a different location than the county seat and are more centrally located within the county, the Groundwater Board would be able to use the facilities of Lincoln County Water District for their convenience. Travel and expenses would be less by meeting at the Water District's headquarters, and this would also create a continuity of records and meetings as time goes on and membership on the boards changes. This morning, we heard that basin revenue assessment fees can potentially be used to fill the general budget of the state. This is a good example of how groundwater boards can be utilized to help the state engineer in the use and accounting of these basin assessments. This will also help the county commissions and the groundwater boards understand how and where the basin assessments dollars collected are being spent. Lincoln County Water District appreciates the opportunity to provide comments on SB 149. Thank you for your time.
Caller with the last three digits of 349. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Doug Busselman, Dougbusselselman. I'm the Executive Vice President for Nevada Farm Bureau. We are speaking today in support of SB 149 and the proposed amendment. I want to thank the committee for being given the opportunity to upload our more complete testimony to the exhibits for today's hearing. I think we need to also point out, in doing that our policy for designated basins came from this past summer's experience of having 58 different groundwater basins being proposed for designation. I'm not planning to read the testimony that I gave in my written comments, but I do want to point out, by way of emphasis, the points that we made in regard to levying assessments for designated basins. The importance of having appointed local groundwater boards in place is essential in our minds for establishing the type of accountability, transparency we believe that should be provided for those who are being charged basin fees. We also see how there could be improvements in understanding how assessment fees are connected with the type of work being carried out in designated basins. This interaction with local groundwater boards might also help to clarify the criteria used in making decisions for designations. Our thought is that the local input from these groundwater boards will go a long way in addressing water resource management from the grassroots up versus from the state level down. We encourage passage of SB 49 with the amendments that have been proposed by Mr. Fontaine. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 662. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Kyle Roerink, Kyleroerink. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm the Executive Director of the Great Basin Water Network. We work with rural governments, tribes, conservationists, farmers, ranchers, and others in order to keep water local. We ask that you support this bill, and we also support the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority's amendment. We think the underlying spirit of SB 149 centers around an idea that we've long advocated for in water policy, more local input and consultation. I know that can be a bit of a politically dividing statement, but when considered through the lens of the existing law, it is clear that Nevada's statute wants an inclusive participatory process. SB 149 ensures that there are no roadblocks to participation for communities that want to be stakeholders. And, I think this is important. When we were talking about a designated basin, that means this is a basin that is having problems or likely to have problems in the future. And, a state engineer can do things like levy assessments, which is, a tax on water use, and they can also put in place other policies on water users in a designated basin. That signals to us a need for collaboration. And this bill will help guarantee more diverse participation when it is needed most. New appropriations, change applications, and a bevy of those management tools I listed in a designated basin can have major economic or environmental impacts. As Senator Goycochea said, Diamond Valley is a great example of why this is important. decisions affecting the groundwater in a county can have grave consequences, as Diamond Valley exemplifies. Aside from filing protests or submitting public comment at hearings, the current means of participation do not offer enough avenues for local governments to be meaningful participants prior to things like litigation. Again, we come back to litigation here. So, nobody knows their communities better than county commissions. The spirit of SB 149 will empower conversations about water supplies by bringing parties to the table in a formal fashion and enable investigation about the benefits or dangers of a given proposal. We urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
We are currently on support testimony on Senate Bill 149. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Next, we will hear testimony in opposition. EPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide testimony in opposition to SB 149?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 149, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 857. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Donate, members of the committee. My name is Chauncey Chowdwong. Chauncey spelled C-H-A-U-N-S-E-Y. Chowdwong spelled C-H-A-U-D-U-O-N-G. And I'm with the Southern Nevada Water Authority. We are the largest water purveyor in the state of Nevada and provide water to over 2.2 million residents. We would like to express our concerns with this bill, and we would like to thank Mr. Jeff Fontaine for meeting with us. Much of what was discussed during the hearing pertained to some of our concerns we had about the bill, but one of the main questions we had in regards to this bill is why it is needed and why there is such a rush to pass it during a time when we haven't had a chance to come together to discuss the details more thoroughly. Based on what was stated in the hearing, it seems like the last time any county petitioned to establish a groundwater board was in the 1990s. So there doesn't seem to be a pressing need to have the law changed, and we still do not understand the argument of how it is cumbersome for the governor to appoint members to a groundwater board when the state engineer just stated that no one has approached their office recently to form a groundwater board. From our perspective, if we are going to change an entire section of law, especially any law that pertains to water, thorough discussion should be had. And I know this is a policy committee, but I would also be remiss if I didn't mention it since the state engineer mentioned it, but there seems to be additional obligations that would be imposed on the state engineer's office at a time when budget shortfalls and staffing shortages continue to contribute to a backlog of applications and permits to be reviewed. Some alternatives to this legislation that could be considered would be that the legislature could pass legislation to address specific water issues in specific hydrographic basins and counties. This was done in Lincoln County, Nye County, and Clark County. The legislature could also pass enabling language, which would provide the tools for local governments to manage their own resources. An example of this is what was done in Clark County in 1997, which allowed the Southern Nevada Water Authority to create the Advisory Committee on Groundwater Management, which has allowed us to collect annual fees from well owners to create a well plugging program to plug abandoned and sometimes hazardous wells, a sub-meter assistance program to provide rebates to customers who purchase a sub-meter, and also a well conversion grant program, which subsidizes 85% of the cost for most well owners to abandon their wells and hook up onto a municipal system. These programs have been immensely successful and resulted from the legislature providing us with tools so that local governments could solve local problems. We certainly understand Mr. Fontaine's intent, and we are happy to work with him during the interim to address this issue. We just feel that this session is not the session to be changing water law when so much else is happening and we have not had a chance to thoroughly discuss the issue. I appreciate the committee for allowing me to speak on this matter, and thank you for your time.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 848. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Dazlich, spelled D-A-Z, Lich, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. We also are testifying in opposition today. As you've heard from our friends at the Water District, this legislation would represent a significant change to water policy, especially in Clark County specifically. We are concerned at the timing of the introduction of this legislation and do believe that such a significant change deserves more full and robust discussion. That's why we're in opposition at this time. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 666. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Warren Hardy, W-A-R-R-E-N, Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. Given this new system, I'm seriously considering changing my phone number from 666. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. I hesitate to sign in opposition to this, but under the rules, we do have concerns with the bill as drafted. And so I did. We're concerned. I'm representing the Moapa Valley and Virgin Valley Water District, and the bill's a little unclear to us, as is the amendment, on how this would work where shared basins between counties exist. We certainly have that shared basin with Lincoln County, and further, in the Virgin Valley Water District, we also have shared basins with other states. So again, under the rules, sign in opposition because we have concerns and questions about the bill as currently drafted, but look forward to the opportunity of working with the committee, Mr. Fontaine, and trying to address specifically those questions. We don't have a quarrel with what is trying to be accomplished here. Ours is a logistical concern, and look forward to the opportunity to continue working. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As a reminder, we are currently in opposition testimony on Senate Bill 149. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, and there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Finally, is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral on this bill?
Thank you so much, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 149, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Dunyate and members of the committee. This is Adam Sullivan, A-D-A-M-S-U-L-L-I-V-A-N. I'm the acting Nevada State Engineer, and I would like to testify neutral on this bill. And with these comments, I'm adding to the previous comments I made during the testimony. And this is just for a little bit of context that I wanted to offer. When an application to appropriate the public waters of the state is presented before the state engineer, it's published within 30 days for a period of 4 weeks. And what this does is it allows anyone to have the opportunity to protest the application prior to the state engineer taking any action. Any applicant or protestant is afforded the same standard of review statewide in accordance with the statutory criteria, regardless of who the applicant is, the amount of water in the application, or who the protestants are. Groundwater basins and river systems often cross county lines, and the state engineer is obligated to use consistent scientific methods to evaluate the effects of a water right across boundaries. In addition, I'd like to make one comment with regard to the discussion. I do appreciate the stated intent to reduce litigation in water cases, but I would just express that I have some concern that SB 149 would actually increase litigation, not decrease it. And with that, I conclude my comments. Thank you.
As a reminder, we are currently on neutral testimony on Senate Bill 149. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in neutral, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you, BPS. I just have one last question, and I'll let Mr. Fontaine do any closing remarks. Would the proponents of this bill be interested in working with the thoughts that were mentioned in the opposition and perhaps maybe looking at alternative legislation that addresses specific water issues in specific basins or counties? Or I'd like to hear your feedback on that, and then if you have any closing remarks.
For the record, Jeff Fontaine. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to provide closing remarks. And before I do that, we're always interested in working with stakeholders and interested parties, and I know everyone on this call who provided comments in opposition, so I'm happy to reach out back out to them to talk about this. There are, I don't remember the last count, but maybe 125 designated basins in the state of Nevada, and the state engineer is proposing to designate an additional 58. So it's hard to, and I guess that's one of the reasons why we propose this bill, is because it's really difficult to have legislation to target a specific basin when you've got literally dozens of basins that are designated. And the whole point of this is to try to avoid those designated basins from becoming critical management basins, which is the next step and difficult one to get out of. With regard to my final comments, I guess I would say this isn't changing the Nevada water law. This is about changing the procedures in a process to appoint a committee that's already in state law. And in fact, it was Clark County that opened the door for groundwater basins back in 1961 when it was created by the legislature. And that groundwater board had far more authority than what we're proposing in this bill. And it resulted in positive outcomes for the Las Vegas Valley groundwater basin. And it was a really well-run process. So we're not looking for tools to manage the basins. We're looking to have a voice for rural Nevada. And to the extent that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to provide comment on applications for water rights or proposed orders or regulations, that's absolutely correct. The problem is not everybody has the same opportunity, because we have areas in rural Nevada where people don't have broadband. Local newspapers aren't as frequent, and those notices aren't published as often as they used to be. So yeah, the requirements for public notification are there, and everybody has the opportunity. And what this bill intends to do is to make sure that those folks in those counties and the folks that they represent in those counties have an opportunity to provide input and have a voice for water issues that affect their livelihood and way of life. As far as the shared basin comment is concerned, the way the bill reads now, and if it's not clear, we can certainly work that part out. But the groundwater board is established in a county that shares a basin with another county. That groundwater board would only have authority to comment on a portion of the groundwater basin in its county. The idea would be that shared basin shared between two or more counties. Those counties could, if they chose to create groundwater boards, could have joint meetings to manage that basin that crosses county boundaries on a more holistic basis. But if not, in that individual county, they would only have say over the portion of the basin in their county. I think that's really about it. And again, I'm happy to reach out and work with the opponents of this bill to see if we can come to some resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fontaine. Senator Gocochea, did you have any last minute remarks before I move forward?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick ones. Again, it has to be a designated basin, and you have to understand, want to make sure it's clear on the record that you can only have one basin in a county that you can have a groundwater board for. And in closing, appreciate you hearing the bill for the Public Lands Interim Committee, but I do urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goyguchia. At this time, I will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 149. The committee will not be taking any action on that bill today, but it may bring it back for a future work session. Let's go ahead and move to public comment before we close this meeting. I will now go ahead and call for public comment. Please remember to limit your comments to 2 minutes each. BPS staff, is there anyone willing to provide public comment?
Thank you so much, Chair. We are currently on public comment. If you have recently joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, and there are no callers for public comment at this time. Would you like to take a quick pause to allow those watching online time to call in?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Standing by. Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no other callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, any comments before we adjourn? Okay, seeing none, thank you again for your collaboration and helping out today and all the thoughtful questions you had. Our next meeting is Thursday, March 18th at 3:30 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.